Welcome, everybody. Brother Goodwin here, Prophecy in the Spotlight. Got an exciting show, very teaching show for you today. A little different than some of our shows, but I think it's going to be very helpful. I have said for years, I mean many years, I have said that most of the false doctrine coming in the prophecy world about the rapture. Remember, there's pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, no trib, I don't know trib, you know, that kind of thing. Now we here at Prophecy in the Spotlight, Doc and I, are 100% pre-trib. And we believe that's the biblical view. And we have no doubt about that. Why are there so many different misunderstandings? Why do people jump to the conclusion of the mid-trib and post-trib? Let me tell you why. The biggest reason is a misunderstanding or not translating properly Matthew 24. We're going to help you with that today. Doc has written a study on Matthew 24, and we have it here in the studio. We're going to share it with you today. I think you're going to get a better understanding of how to read and understand and study Matthew 24. So get you some soda pop or water or some coffee, and get in your chair, call your friends and text your buddies, tell them that Brother Goodwin and Dr. Hiltibidal are on, tell them to turn their TV on, and let's get started, okay, right now. All righty. Brother Goodwin here, Prophecy in the Spotlight, and we're glad to have Doc with us again this week. And he's doing much better. I appreciate everyone that's prayed for him. Him and his wife both were down with this flu stuff. Yeah. And we always get nervous when Doc gets sick because he's got Agent Orange from Vietnam, and he's got lung problems, so it's doubly dangerous when he gets sick. So we sure are thankful to the Lord for bringing them through this. Doc, this is, we did a show last week about the eclipse coming. And I was telling my wife on the way here, I said, you know, this thing on the eclipse is going to be exciting. But what we're doing today is more important than the eclipse. This is Bible stuff here.
The other thing's a little more exciting, I guess,
but a little bit of guessing too.
And it can have a lot of applications, yes or no, and
it might not mean nothing. and you waste your time on it.
Yep.
This is Bible here.
Yes.
This is an important subject. Now, you handed me this several weeks ago. You said, you know, might be good for a show.
This is the last of Jesus' major teaching before.
Okay. And you handed me your outline that you wrote. And I've had it for several weeks, I think. And I happened to come across it, and I started looking at it. I'll tell you what I liked, and we'll get to this in a minute, but you got a heading here in front of each passage of Matthew 20.
Each of the sections.
You got like 5 or 6 verses per section. Mm-hmm. You have outlined this thing. You have set this apart, and you're helping people understand what this section is talking about, what this one's talking about.
This particularly, I have and she can show it to you, I have a CD that's 2 CDs teaching on this. But I was in my office maybe 3 months ago, and a preacher called, which is not uncommon, and he says, I'm getting ready to preach through Matthew 24, and I'm just really struggling. Seems like it's here and seems like it's there and back and forth. And I said, well, give me about 30 minutes, and I'll send you a file, and then I'll go over it with you. Well, in those 30 minutes, I sat down and just done this because I've taught it for so many years, and then sent it to him and went over. And afterwards, he said, "Preacher, I can understand it now. Thank you so much." And I just handed you a copy of it, and
well, I got looking at it. I said, "Man, this would I wish we could shrink this and put laminate on it, and so you could stick it right in your Bible at Matthew 24. But I'm afraid the words would be a little small if we did that.
But I do believe that when you understand how Matthew 24 is laid out, and the biggest issue is to understand that everything in Matthew 24 and 25 is beyond the church age. So it's not the rapture of the church in these passages, though there's similarities.
The church isn't even mentioned in there.
The church is not here.
All right, so before we begin, let's get this out of the way, Doc. We offered this a week and a half ago or something, and she'll put that up. Apostasy, a study of the book of Jude by your son, Mark Hiltibidal. I added a book in here called Angels in the Book of Jude. And we were offering this for a donation of $25, and we'll pay the shipping and everything. You can't get this anywhere. My Angels thing is in one of my books, but your son's study here of apostasy is just outstanding.
His study of teaching through the book of Hebrews, he probably would have a stack this deep, just like that.
So what we've decided to do, and we haven't shipped any of these yet, I'm going to redo the cover, and I'm going to add what's called an overview of Matthew 24, the same amount of money, $25, donation to Prophecy Spotlight to keep us going here. I'm going to add this in here, so there'll be 3 lessons in here.
Right.
And I'm telling you, folks, you're going to want this. This is powerful. This will forever help you journey through Matthew 24.
It doesn't, I didn't take time to put any ad lib or any addition. I just put the headings.
The headings is where you've got the scriptures here, but then you put a heading,
yes,
and you show what each passage is talking about, and it clears it all up perfectly. It's 3 pages, 3 full pages, 8 by 11. So let's get into this, Doc, and show. I think if
well,
she
read
didn't
the first 3 verses.
Okay.
Yeah, read the
Matthew
first 3
24,
because that's the setting of what it's all about.
All right, Matthew 24, and Jesus went out and departed from the temple. And his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. They wanted to brag a little bit. Hey, how do you like our temple, Lord?
How you like?
And
he's thinking,
he who created everything
put
the stars in the sky. And they want to show him that.
Wait till you see the temple I have in the millennial reign.
Yeah, it's humorous sometimes when you read that. They're talking to the one who put the stars in the sky.
But it shows you the natural man's understanding of spiritual things.
Look what we've done, Lord. Yeah. And Jesus, verse 2, said unto them, boy, he really let them have it here. Yeah. He said, see ye not all these things? In other words, the temple.
Yeah. The big stone, some of them almost as big as this table in height and size.
Yeah. And he said, verily, I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Yeah. That was vicious. That was rough right there.
And their minds beginning to twirl.
And then verse 3, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, you and I have been there. You've been there many times. I've been there twice. And you sit on the Mount of Olives at the olive trees, and you can see what's left of the wall and the Kidron Valley there. That's where they're sitting.
Yep.
In verse 3, and he sat upon the Mount of Olives. The disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? I think they're meaning the stones,
when's this going to happen?
And when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world?
Yeah.
So that's 1 through 3.
That's, but you need to understand the setting. They've come from the upper room in teaching time. They come in and they come past the temple. Then they go out the eastern gate. They walk down the Kidron Valley, about 1/8 of a mile across there, up here. So you can imagine, 20 minutes? They're thinking, what did he just say? What is the implications of that? And so as soon as he sits down, they say, hey, we just got to know, when's this going to happen? And when are you going to set up your kingdom? When are you coming back? And when's the end of all this age? This is coming to an end. And so from that point on, Jesus is going to answer those 3 questions, though they weren't asked in an exact order. He puts it in order. And he's going to start at where they're at, and he's going to bring them step by step through his teaching to the millennial reign, and then he's going to, at the end, bring you back to where they are at that time, and then he's going to start giving reinforcing parables.
Okay, so in the introduction to the show today, I mentioned that Matthew 24 is one of the most misunderstood prophecy chapters in the Bible.
Yes.
almost everyone who preaches a mid-trib rapture or a post-trib rapture is going to take you to Matthew 24 to back it up. Yeah. And so my first question for you is this, Doc. Why are people so mixed up in Matthew 24?
Because they think the church is in Matthew 24. And Matthew 24 has to do with the second coming and the kingdom of Christ. That is all after the church age is over.
Now, the church age, according to Paul, was a mystery, just like the rapture, wasn't it? These people didn't know about it.
It was still a mystery at that moment.
That's right.
That's why they said, after he rose, what did it say? Are you going to establish your kingdom now?
Yep. Yep, they were looking for a kingdom, rightfully so.
Even though they were already a constituted church and had already been breathed upon with the Holy Spirit. Though it'll be Pentecost when the entire church is empowered. But they were already that church, but they didn't understand their purpose until God gave it to them in Acts chapter 1, verse number 8.
Yeah, and of course, right before that, they said, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore unto us the kingdom? Yeah. He ignored that, didn't even answer that. Yeah. He said, tarry in Jerusalem to be endued with power, and he's going to send back to heaven. Yeah. Then Pentecost is going to happen 10 days later, and they still don't understand it all yet. Stephen's going to come along.
Well, because the mystery is going to begin to unveil over a period of time, and the full mystery is really not given till Apostle Paul's ministry.
Now, Doc, I wrote this down while you were getting the printer going out there before we started the show. So I got some things I wrote down that I didn't tell you about.
Oh, well, I'm kind of used to this.
And this, and this point one that I just asked you, why are people mixed up in Matthew 24, you led right into my next question. You said, well, the church was still a mystery and they didn't understand it. And so that leads me to this. The church, the placing of the church in Matthew 24 could actually be promoting a replacement theology without realizing it.
If they're not careful.
Because if you're putting the church in Matthew 24, you're booting the Jews out of the whole passage.
Yep. And this is where some people get the post-trib thing, because they don't see, and this is why there's a segment of good men and ladies that are, I believe, mixed up on this, do not see the relevance of present-day Israel in this matter.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's because they get over to the section in Matthew 24 where he starts using an illustration in relationship to either the goats and sheep nation for the millennial reign, or when he uses the analogy of Noah, one shall be taken and the other left. Well, what happened in the days of Noah? The ones were taken alive and the others were left and dead.
Yeah, the ark was lifted up.
Yes.
And which leads me to something.
And it has nothing to do with the rapture of the church.
Right. And there's a rapture there, but not the rapture.
Not the rapture of the church.
Because the rapture that's in Matthew 24 is really what we call the gleanings.
Yes.
And it is a rapture. There's more than one rapture in the Bible. But
well, there are many.
But when we talk about the rapture, we're talking about the pre-trib rapture.
Actually, I guess the first rapture would, would have been Enoch, you know. And
he was translated. That's really the word. The word rapture is not in the Bible.
No.
The word translated is probably the word we should have used all these years.
And that's maybe why Paul, in his preaching on the subject, talked about the catching away.
Caught up, yeah.
But he spent more time at the church at Corinth in his letter about a change from the present to the future.
We shall all be changed in the twinkling of an eye.
This mortal must put on immortality.
Yeah, and it's the resurrection of the body, basically.
So there are many, in one sense, there are many resurrections in this situation.
Elijah is a type of...
Because whenever Jesus came, there were graves opened and many Old Testament saints.
Yeah.
Secondly, there had to be a rapture of sense. He emptied out Abraham's bosom, paradise, and took them to heaven.
Yeah.
But it's easy, I could see, because the one taken, one left behind, the one grinding, and the one in the mill, and all of this, all of that is a parallel picture of what rapture is. But in Matthew chapter 24, this is about the Jews. This is about the tribulation and the millennial reign.
Yeah.
It's not about the church.
And briefly here, I explain it this way, like a farmer. The reason we miss a lot of the Bible is we're not farmers. Now, you are, but most people are not. My wife is to some degree, but I don't know a whole lot about it.
Well, really, this is one of the reasons, Dan, you can go to the heart of Africa and you can teach Bible principles and they get it just like this because they're agricultural people.
Yeah, and they're third world. Yeah.
Yes.
They're not modernized. So a farmer plants a seed. He's got his crop growing. The harvest of that crop is in 3 stages. I realize that's not the way it is anymore.
And the harvest is always later than when you plant it.
Yep. And the first phase is the first fruits, and that was given to God, offered to God. And then you had your main harvest. You see all this in the book of Ruth.
Sure.
The main harvest, but you don't cut it all. That's what's foreign to us. We get our John Deere tractor. In 2 hours, they wipe off the whole field, and it's gone.
It's because modern technology with the grain ripens all together. But in a natural setting, it's a gradual thing.
Yeah.
There's always some that's not ready at that main
But they
harvest
also
time.
were supposed to leave some for the widow and the poor.
For the widows and
so you
strangers.
left the corners of your field. You didn't harvest that.
Yep.
Now you didn't have to cut it and deliver it to anybody. They had to come out with their bags and,
they had to collect
they
it
had to work.
themselves. But God made a welfare system.
That's God's welfare system.
But it required you to work.
If a man don't work, neither should he eat.
And it required the man that's being blessed with his field to be a blessing to others at the same time.
And so that harvest of a crop, I liken that to the harvest of a body.
Yeah.
The bodily harvest, the bodily resurrection. First fruits, Christ, the first to rise from the grave. Main harvest, the rapture, all the bodies of the dead saints over the years.
Because it's a bodily resurrection.
And see, we think the rapture is about us. It really isn't. It's about the resurrection of the body. And there's thousands, millions of them throughout the years. And we think it's about us. It's not about us. But it just so happens we haven't died yet. We're still in our body when he comes for it. So we're blessed to not die, and we go with our body, spirit, soul, and body.
But in essence, we do, because the word death simply means separation. So we're going to be separated from the old body to a new body. But the whole purpose of the rapture is to fill heaven or the celestial city to be in the presence of our Father.
And the third stage of farming is the gleanings.
Gleanings.
The third stage of that harvest of souls. First fruits, main harvest, gleanings. And the gleanings, I believe, is what we're seeing in Matthew 24.
The gleanings can be here, and also by the end of the millennial reign, there's going to be a lot of people that during the millennial reign that's going to become true believers, even though they're ruled over the rod of iron and living in conformity, but there'll be many that will live in transformity. And so I can see where that might stretch over a longer period. There are areas, folks, that we cannot, and if anybody's dogmatic about some of these things we're talking about, you got to be careful.
And also, there's going to be a lot of people, there'll be people saved in the second half.
Yes.
Most of them, not all, but most of them will be martyred. They'll be put to death. So their body's laying in a grave somewhere. Now, we know how
or
our
just
body,
thrown out in the field.
We know how our body got to heaven, the rapture. But what about those people? I believe that's part of the gleanings. When Christ comes on the white horse, I believe there's a rapture there called the gleanings, and the bodies of the dead saints are taken.
And when you study the book of Revelation a little closer, you realize that the saints you're talking about that are martyred in particular, they have a different level of reward than the church age saints.
Yeah, and that's Revelation 7.
Yeah. We have a different, we're going to be, because we're joint heirs with Christ, we're already seated in the heavenlies. And so if we're joint heirs with Christ, that means we're going to rule and reign with Christ during the millennial reign. And the Bible is clear, we're going to rule and reign in the new heaven and new earth for eternity to come.
Yeah, I see that in verse 13 through 15, the martyrs of the tribulation.
Yeah.
Who are these in white robes? These are they that came out of great tribulation.
Yeah.
That's chapter 7.
That's the
So
second
chapter
half.
5 are church age saints. Chapter 7 are the tribulation saints.
Absolutely.
These are they which came out of great tribulation, have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore are they before the throne of God. See, there is a difference here.
There's a difference.
Yeah, and it goes on there,
There's
but
a
we'll.
difference. Yeah.
I had one more thing I wrote down here, Doc, and then we're going to have you comment a little bit more on this. In the outline, you separated passages of Scripture with a heading. What gave you the idea to do that?
Well, I tried to because I believe these are the sections as he's teaching, putting it all in order. Kind of like Paul's writing of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, putting it in order from the gathering together of rapture would be all the way through to the millennial reign and the destruction of the devil. And so these are the sections. And I believe that when you see that, you begin to realize, wow, the first section, verses 9 through 14, is from their time, where they were asking the question, that brought you up to Daniel's 70th week.
Yeah.
And in particular, it's going to even bring you in verse 15, you're going to bring yourself to the middle of the tribulation, where you have the abomination of desolation.
Yeah.
And so you're starting at their time, bringing you up to the time of the tribulation. Then the next session brings you into the tribulation to the middle of the tribulation.
See, this will be such a help to somebody.
Yeah.
Helping them get the church out of there. This will help them realize he's talking to Jews.
And then he has a next section on warning them about false prophets. And so here's another place where people say, oh, that's talking about the church because all the false prophets and false teachers, don't go after this. Don't say he's over here or over there. That's talking about the Jews during the tribulation.
Yeah.
Because he's putting us all in order, I believe.
Okay. Well,
that's what I've tried to do here.
Let's look a little more deeply at this, but real quick here, we're coming up on the end of our quarter, and we have another quarter coming up, which is April, May, June, I believe. Yeah, April, May, and June, and we'll have a big payment due. So we've got, by the time this airs, there'll be just a week or two to go before the payment's due. We are viewer supported. We appreciate everyone who partners with us, sends us checks or hits the donate button. Many of you have an automatic monthly thing that you do that helps us greatly, and we appreciate it. We're coming up on the end of the quarter again, and we sure could use some of you to step up to the plate and help us out. We've got other networks we would like to get on in the near future, but we got to make sure we pay the bills here first. So pick up the phone and donate over the phone or mail a check to the address. But if you need any help with that, be sure and call us or email us. Either way, get a hold of us. We'll help you through the process. Many ways to donate. There's several donate buttons on the page. You can write a check and mail it in the mail. You can call the 800 number. Whatever's best for you. We're here to help you with that. Thank you so much for keeping us on the air.
Amen.
So, Doc, let's just continue on here. You got it segregated here, and we are going to offer. This is in this booklet here, and I hope you'll order this $25 donation. There's going to be 3 different lessons in here. I think we already went over that, didn't we? But anyway, yeah, we won't. Okay, so. Here we got the second coming on page 2 here, Doc.
I love this section, verse 27 and on, and it's like lightning out of the. You put this with the book of Revelation, and Jesus coming back.
Revelation 19.
Okay. So in chapter 16, you've got the 7 vials of wrath, which came to the end. What do you have at the end of that? You got almost total darkness, and all of a sudden.
You mean an eclipse?
All of a sudden, here comes the glory of God. And he said, like lightning out of the east.
See, that's not the rapture. That's the second coming.
That's the second coming.
Yeah.
And so he's got all this in order. He's gone through the tribulation. Now he's come to the second coming. Then verse number 31, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of trumpet. And they shall gather together the elect from the 4 winds, from the ends of the heaven. He's talking about gathering all of the Jews What for? The millennial reign.
millennium.
It's not sending out angels for a rapture or a gathering of the church.
That's right.
It's getting everybody ready for the millennial reign.
See, they see that great sound of a trumpet, and they jump to the
They jump to the trumpet.
There's many things that trumpets did in the
Yes.
Bible. You
Yes.
can't just put the rapture there.
Absolutely. And then what he does after that in verse number 32, he goes back to the signs that relate to the actual 70th week of Daniel. Now learn a parable of the fig tree.
Yeah.
What's he talking about? The fig tree is Israel. This is all about Israel.
Yeah.
And so he's brought them all the way through to the millennial reign. Now he says, let me give you some things to go with it to help you understand. Here's a parable of a fig tree. When you see these things happen, you know that summer's not. This is getting ready to take place. Yeah. He's already given them the answers down through there. Now he's going to give them some signs. Then he used the example of Noah and the flood.
All right, that gets us down to verse 36. So there's another heading there.
Yep.
He used the example of Noah and the flood, it says.
Yeah. And what for? To show you that they, at the second coming of the Christ, there's going to be a lot left and there's going to be a lot that goes. And one of these has to do, actually, I believe it has to do, some can make the application of the sheep and goats nations. Others can make the application that when Christ comes, there's going to be a separation, and there will be a separation. And because what happened, as we said already, when Noah lifted up, they were alive and the rest were dead.
Yeah.
And so at the second coming, what's going to happen? These armies are all gathered together. What's going to happen? The sword of his mouth.
Yeah, the Battle of Armageddon is going to end in a moment.
And so then, because we're going to run out of time, the last of it, you know, in verses 45 and on, possibly pertaining to the rulership and the design of the millennial reign.
Yeah.
So it helps people. But in this, it's not the church age. Yeah. This all has to do with Israel and preparing a remnant of Israel for the millennial reign, as well as the Gentile nations that's going to come under Jewish rule during the millennial reign.
Yeah. Well, Doc, this is good stuff. I thought this would be tremendous for our viewers to get a hold of. I mean, to have this in paper form where you can actually...
It would have been nice if I'd have taken time to add some of this in there, but I did this to help a preacher on a short notice. And
now your CDs, they can order the CDs.
Yeah, they can get my CDs out of our bookstore.
Yeah, those will...
They're a little more in-depth, of course.
Yeah.
Probably not quite 2 hours of teaching,
Okay.
hour and a half of teaching.
All right. Well, folks, God bless. Hope you enjoyed the show today. This is old-fashioned Bible prophecy teaching right here. And this is important. This is the most misunderstood prophecy passage in the Bible, Matthew 24. All right, we'll see you next time. Keep your eyes on them skies.